Good afternoon and welcome again to the Office of the Police Commissioner for another quarterly press briefing. It comes at an important time in the year, given that we are at the halfway mark in 2023. The second quarter has come to an end, and we think it's important for us to share with you insights into the work that we have done in the first half of the year, insights into the national security landscape. The main speaker, as usual, will be the Commissioner of Police, Major General Anthony Anderson. Supporting him is to his right, DCP Fitzbailey, DCP MacArthur Sutherland. We have to his left, DCP Clifford Blake and DCP Richard Stewart. So at this time, without further ado, I hand over to the Police Commissioner, Major General Anthony Anderson.
Okay, thank you, Dennis, and thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon. It's good to have you all at another press briefing. We consider this one of our key public outreach methods, along with our social media engagements and direct public interactions. Notably, we have now completed a half of the year, which is a critical time when we review, make strategic adjustments, and refocus where necessary. Today, I'll provide an overview of where we are at this point and highlight some of the results we are seeing in key areas of focus. We are still actively pursuing the gangs, guns, and gunmen, which are at the source of our violence problem. We are still intercepting known gunmen and have come head-on with some of Jamaica's most wanted persons, some of who refused the option of peaceful surrender and hence met their demise. The seizure of the 370 illegal guns for the first 6 months of the year, and the arrest and charge of 565 persons under the new firearms legislation, 490 of whom were charged for being in possession of a prohibited weapon, is a reflection of the relentless efforts of our police officers in this regard. With respect to gangs, we continue our thrust to disrupt and dismantle them. We await the sentencing of members of the Andre Blackman Brian-led gang, following the conclusion of the trial where Brian and 14 gangsters were convicted of 35 offenses. Additionally, there are 2 new gang cases before the courts, which involve 20 gangsters from the Ranco and Kings Valley Extension gangs. 18 will face the courts, as 2 of the members who were granted bail were murdered by other gangsters. 2 other cases are in advanced stages of investigation, which should see an additional 50 gangsters go before the courts. As well as that, our ongoing social media campaign continues to reap success with an increasing number of persons sharing information via Crime Stop and other means. The increasing reports of tips to Crime Stop coincides with our campaign, and we thank members of the public for demonstrating an interest, not only in their own safety, but the collective security of our country. Now, whereas social media has been effectively used as a communication and engagement platform, it is increasingly becoming an enabler for ill-intentioned persons to spread misinformation and disinformation. We're witnessing a growing trend where individuals exploit social media platforms to create fear, spread chaos, and disorder. Just recently in St. Anne, we saw where a man who subsequently claimed he was doing a bomb threat prank caused significant redeployment of government resources. Police assets from the St. Anne Division, PSTEB, K9, and Specialized Operations, as well as resources from the fire department and the military, had to be diverted to deal with the threat. Economic activities were significantly impacted as roadways and businesses were closed down to facilitate evacuation efforts, while motorists were inconvenienced. The perpetrator, who pleaded guilty, was charged with creating public mischief and malicious communication under the Cybercrimes Act. We await his sentencing. I must also highlight the challenges associated with the creation of content meant to mislead the police during investigations, the practice of modifying disturbing videos from other jurisdictions to appear as if it is occurring in Jamaica, or to represent videos from the past as present occurrences. All create a feeling of fear and uncertainty, both here and abroad. Now, as the digital environment evolves, we are increasingly seeing the need for specific legislation that defines new offenses within the context of social media, of artificial intelligence, deepfakes, and the wider use of the cyberspace. These offenses would range from digital public mischief to more serious and damaging violations. In the meantime, we urge the public to act responsibly in their use of the digital space. Another point is that while persons share information with us online via tweets and other means, which we appreciate, it is important that victims of crime or witnesses make an official report as well in order to have the matter properly resolved. The recent murder of Daniel Rowe, that tragedy, on June 8th has highlighted the issue of the safety of our children. Let me assure you that this case is a high priority for us as we continue the investigations. We still believe the perpetrator was known to Daniel, and once again ask the public for their assistance in identifying the person. This year, in the 4 instances where children 12 and under were killed, the perpetrators were known to the victims and in positions of trust. Let me just say that providing this fact is by no means intended to diminish the significance of each tragic loss, because no child should be murdered. However, in spite of these tragedies, from our perspective, as a society, we generally still protect our children. And also, in keeping with the theme of protecting our children, we're now in that summer period. A number of our children will be out of school, as a matter of fact, the majority of them, and under reduced supervision as parents go out to work. It is important that parents and guardians know what their children are doing at home, both on and offline, and also what happens when they attend parties and other social events. We are seeing a growing trend involving the sale and use of recreational drugs, such as Molly or ecstasy at these events. We urge parents to discourage the use of these drugs whilst we address the criminal aspects of this matter. As it relates to major crimes, at the half-year mark, overall, major crimes were down by 16% when compared to the similar period last year. Murders were down by 13% or 94 less. Shootings were down by 12% or 71 less. Rapes were down by 24% or 63 less. And robberies were down by 23% or 111 less. Break-ins were down 12% or 62 less. We found that gang conflicts still account for the highest proportion at 67% of the murders. Interpersonal conflicts accounted for 20%, whilst 5% occurred in the furtherance of other criminal acts, and 8% are still being determined. This is a shift as we see a reduction in the gang-related murders and an increase in the interpersonal. The JCF continues to work with communities, partners, and through our domestic violence centers to impact the interpersonal conflicts that can give rise to serious violent crimes. We're also committed to supporting our vulnerable communities and are currently engaged in supporting the Special Olympics program. For the last 37 years, the JCF has been the largest fundraiser for Special Olympics Jamaica. We are supported in this endeavor by other security and uniform groups, and also some corporate groups. I commend the Special Olympics team and our own Sergeant Gladstone Seeley, who was head of the 65-member delegation to the Summer Games in Berlin last month, for their outstanding performance. They won 18 medals, 8 gold, 7 silver, and 3 bronze. I take this opportunity to invite you, anyone watching this, to join us on Sunday, July the 16th, for the 2023 staging of the Law Enforcement Torch Run 5K in support of Special Olympics. In closing, at this half-year mark, we are positioned to end the year with a reduction in all major crimes. You can help by sharing information on the gangs, guns, and gunmen. You can also help by using social media responsibly. We recognize that it will take continual effort on our part, and also the cooperation of all well-thinking persons to achieve this. We can all do our part to create a safe environment for our children and be invested in the safety and security of our communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. At this time, we now open the floor. We have representatives from TVJ, CVM, Nationwide, and the Star on the platform. We will not take questions from journalists who are on other platforms where we are live streaming. So over to the journalists on the platform. Those of you who have questions, you may ask them now.
I have a hand up there. I have a hand.
There's a hand. I see Roxroy McLean of Nationwide News Network. Go ahead, Roxroy. Unmute. All right. In the meantime,
good afternoon, everyone.
Yes, good afternoon, Roxroy.
My question is to the Commissioner. Commissioner, you mentioned that gang conflict now accounts for 67% of murders this year, right?
Yes.
Interpersonal conflict accounts for 20%.
Yes.
Usually, gang conflict accounts for closer to 80%.
Yes.
What would you say is responsible for the shift?
Okay, so we're actually starting to see the impact of our efforts to dismantle and disrupt gang activity and gangs. As you're aware, we just finished a number of gang trials over the past 2 years. The latest being that one that I mentioned earlier, the Andre Bryan led faction of the Clanks gang. We also have 2 more gangs with some of the members in custody, and these tend to be dangerous people, and before the courts. So we have 2 gangs now before the courts, and then we have 2 others where the investigations are progressing well. Some people are already in custody. So I think that concerted effort by our investigators, our gang unit, and the team that deal with that is reaping results. Along with that, there are specific operations in keeping with our operational plans that allow us to target gangs and their activities. So I think we're starting to see the impact of all of these efforts on that group that really create the most violence in our society.
Thank you very much. We have a question, a hand raised from Nika Lewis of CVM. Go ahead, Nika.
Thank you. Gentlemen and Commissioner Hall, I'm curious as to the nature of the gang conflict that is impacting sections of the 2 miles area in which we are seeing recent reprisals and attacks on especially women in some instances, as recent as yesterday. How would you react to what has been happening in that space, if at all?
Well, I mean, so the 2 Mile era has been on and off problematic for many years now. I think for the past probably 10 years or so, or probably more. And as we move resources around, clearly, once this flares up again in the 2 Mile space, we'll be deploying, along with our partners, additional assets into that space. And that will be and is our response to a flare up there or in any other place across the country. Clearly, we have to be as agile and fluid as possible because we don't have sufficient to be everything everywhere all at once. So the 2 Mile era, particularly problematic, especially at the moment. So we will do the necessary interventions there to support the St. Andrew South team in dealing with that conflict. I must say, and it's unfortunate that apart from our children, the other vulnerable group that sometimes ends up in the conflict are our women. We see most of the time that they are attacked because of their associations with other persons who are in conflict. So that would be my response. I don't know if anyone wants to add anything. You want to add anything? Okay, that's fine. Yes.
All right, we have another question from Roxroy McLean. Go ahead, Roxroy.
I wanted to add to question one, to you, Commissioner.
You went mute again.
Sorry, Roxroy. You're mute. All right, while Roxroy sorts out his audio, Anthony Lugg of TVJ. Anthony, go ahead.
Yes, Commissioner, the Daniel Road case, I heard you said you need the public's assistance and support with the case. Can you say how close are we to finding that person, the person responsible? There was also an electronic facial identification technique that was used to put out the picture there. Has that bear any fruit? Are we getting closer to solving this case?
You want to speak? Right?
Let me just say that the investigation is ongoing. We have a number of leads that we are following, but we are still appealing to the public that if they know anything in relation to this matter, they need to contact us at the numbers that we have given: Crime Stop 113-811, 311 and 811, which is the NIB number. It's one of those cases that, it's unfortunate, very unfortunate. The circumstances under which she was taken suggest to us that it is someone who is very close to her, as was indicated by the commissioner. What we are giving it all the attention. We have identified a senior investigator who is leading, and there's constant review at the highest level within the JCF.
All right, thank you. We have a question from the Star, but I'm not aware who from the Star is on the platform. So could that person identify themselves and then ask their question? The Star? Okay, all right. While we sort that out, Nika Lewis has another question. Go ahead, Nika. Okay.
Thank you. If I may proceed, then, I'd just like to have an understanding as to the latest development in relation to the escapees from the Black River station.
Okay, I'll take that one. So we are still in pursuit of them. The 8 of them that escaped. We actually are. We have come close to them a few times, and various ones of them. We have some. We have done some good work in terms of identifying where they may be and where they should be going. I don't want to say too much. We're using all of our intelligence sources and apparatus to catch up with them. I'll just say that for now. And as soon as we recover any of them, I will, or one of the team will update further.
Thank you. Roxroy has sent in his question in the chat. Says he's having audio issues. He says his question is a follow-up to the one he posed earlier to the commissioner. He says, are we seeing more Jamaicans killing each other due to squabbles and grievances?
Yes, yes, Roxroy, that we are seeing that, and that's why, to an extent, the balance is changing. So in one respect, the number of gang ones are reducing, but we're seeing an increase, not necessarily an equal increase, but an increase in interpersonal ones and just how persons resolve differences. I mean, we actually had one of the young children who was actually killed in a conflict between cousins. I mean, this is the sort of thing. So it's not just the conflict between the actual persons involved in the conflict. This creates spillover to families and associates and friends. To the extent that we also deal with the domestic violence aspect of things, and that's one slice of the overall interpersonal issues, we are seeing as well in our domestic violence centers, I believe that the percentage of males coming to the center has increased now to about 35%. So these are interesting as we continue to offer these services and people get more comfortable with us, that we can address these conflicts to the extent that we can. However, we recognize that a lot of we have limitations in terms of how we deal with social issues. And to the extent that we can, we try to work with partners on some of these issues to get that resolution of conflicts, interpersonal conflicts, in other than serious violence as a response. We, I believe, we'll certainly continue our path with respect to this, but it's really important that this issue gets a lot of attention so that it doesn't become the new source of violence in the country. Yes, you may. Sure.
I just want to highlight the issue of mob killing as well.
Yes.
Which we have seen some increase since recent times. Whilst we understand that citizens can become frustrated, especially when cattle are stolen, but we want to appeal to the citizen not to take the law in their own hand. We have had instances in the past where innocent persons who were not actually involved in any act of dishonesty, but they were just in a space at the wrong time. There was an incident some years ago in St. Catherine where a taxi driver actually drove into a lane and he was actually mobbed because it was viewed by the public that he was involved in cattle stealing. A tire was placed around his neck and he was burned to death. Again, we want to appeal to the public not to take the law in their own hands. And this is adding significantly to the amount of murder. I shouldn't say significantly, but it's adding to our murder. For the past week, we have had at least 3 of those instances. So again, we appeal to the public to demonstrate some tolerance and allow the law enforcement agencies to deal with those issues.
Thank you, DCP. We have a question from Maisha Brody from IRA FM News. She asks, have charges been laid against the persons who were taken into custody following an operation at the Kahal Yahweh religious compound in St. James last week? If yes, what are the offenses and names of those charged? So do we have that information handy?
I know that they will be charged, but I am not certain if the charges have been laid. We just need to verify that. But I think the charges will be in relation to the child protection legislation.
Thank you, sir. The next question, the raised hand has been taken down. Do we have any other questions from the journalists on the platform? Just giving a moment for, just in case the question is coming through. It does not appear to be. If there's no further raised hands, I will take it that the questions that you had have been answered, and that indeed the information that we have shared has been beneficial, and I look forward to the stories that will make the news in the days and hours to come. On behalf of the Commissioner, the Deputy Commissioners, and all of us here at CCU and the Office of the Police Commissioner, my name is Dennis Brooks, wishing you a wonderful day. Take care.